there is a distinct point where silence becomes a conscious choice rather than just a lack of speech. For 11 years, I was the dependable husband who quietly supported my wife's family through every single crisis and gathering. My name is Vance, and I never expected that a Sunday afternoon by a lake would completely destroy my marriage. The moment my mother-in-law pointed her finger at my face in front of 30 people, I knew everything was over. Before that summer, I was always the person they called whenever something broke down or required heavy lifting. I repaired Warren's flooded basement and spent hours driving Mallory's younger sister Paige to the airport in the middle of the night. I attended over a dozen exhausting family reunions without a single word of complaint from my side. I truly believed that my dedication would eventually earn me a place of genuine respect within their tight circle. The annual gathering took place at a remote lakeside property in Tennessee, which lacked reliable cellular service and modern conveniences. Mallory spent weeks talking about how wonderful it would be to see everyone again after a long winter. Her older sister Bridget had previously made backhanded comments about my commercial property business, but I promised Mallory I would behave myself. We drove up the winding roads together, feeling completely connected and happy as a couple. Upon our arrival, Paige ran down from the wooden dock to welcome us with enormous enthusiasm and energy. She was the only member of Mallory's family who treated me with authentic kindness and warmth over the years. Soon the rest of the relatives materialized, including Bridget and her husband Nolan, along with an unemployed cousin named Preston. Preston always acted like he owned the property despite never contributing anything of value to the family dynamics. The emotional disrespect did not arrive all at once, but rather manifested through small daily microaggressions. During breakfast on Saturday morning, Glenda poured fresh coffee for her children and their partners, but intentionally skipped my empty cup completely. Later that afternoon, Warren asked Nolan and Preston for assistance with a major structural drainage problem on the property. When I offered my professional expertise based on years of business experience, Warren ignored me entirely. That evening, the entire group gathered around a long outdoor table illuminated by beautiful hanging fairy lights. Preston suddenly decided to ask me about my business loudly enough to draw the attention of everyone seated nearby. He mockingly referred to my successful commercial enterprise as a basic lawn mowing operation, while Bridget laughed softly. Mallory remained completely silent and focused entirely on cutting her dinner instead of defending her own husband. On Sunday afternoon, Bridget cornered me near the storage shed while I was helping move some heavy folding tables. She claimed that Mallory was deeply unhappy and stressed because of my long working hours and cold demeanor. Bridget insisted that my focus on growing my business was actively harming the family dynamic and causing unnecessary tension. I walked away from her and immediately found Mallory standing alone by the water to discuss the situation. When I told Mallory about the conversation, she calmly admitted that she already knew about Bridget's planned intervention. Mallory claimed that her mother felt disrespected and suggested that I simply needed to try harder to fit in. I pointed out that I had spent 11 years trying my out best, but she merely turned back toward the water. There was a cold emotional distance in her eyes that made me realize our relationship was fundamentally broken. An hour later, the family gathered on the back porch in a tight circle to begin a formal intervention. Glenda stepped forward and declared that I needed to apologize sincerely to the entire family or pack my bags. I looked at Mallory for support, but she deliberately stared at the floor and refused to meet my eyes. I smiled calmly and walked inside the guest room to book a one-way flight back to Chicago. Paige followed me into the bedroom with tears in her eyes, asking me to stay and talk things through. I hugged her tightly and explained that she was not responsible for the cruel actions of her relatives. I grabbed my suitcase and walked past the silent crowd on the porch without offering another word. Mallory watched me walk to my vehicle with a pale expression as if she expected me to break down. During the quiet drive to the airport, my phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from Mallory and her mother. I ignored every single notification and focused entirely on the profound sense of peace that filled the vehicle. After landing in Chicago, I went straight to my office suite and called my veteran divorce attorney immediately. What Mallory did not know was that I had already restructured my business assets a year prior to protect my equity. By Thursday afternoon, the legal separation papers were officially served to Mallory while she was still staying at the lake house. She called me frantically demanding to know why I was ruining our entire marriage over a simple family argument. I told her that her decision to stand on the wrong side of the room during the intervention was the final straw. I ended the call and refused to listen to any further excuses or negotiations. The legal proceedings moved incredibly fast because my documentation was organized and my business assets were entirely protected. Paige called me a few weeks later to check on my well-being and update me on the situation. She admitted that I did not deserve the treatment I received and apologized for not speaking up sooner. I told her that she was right and thanked her for her honesty before hanging up the phone. Months after the divorce was finalized, Paige reached out again to inform me that the lake house was being sold. The severe drainage issue that Warren had ignored had completely undermined the foundation because Preston and Nolan lacked any actual skill. Glenda had even suggested asking me for free professional advice to repair the structure cheaply. I simply smiled and shifted the conversation because I was completely done fixing things for ungrateful people. Stepping away from that toxic environment taught me that self-respect is far more valuable than keeping the peace. You cannot fix a relationship where your partner values the approval of dysfunctional relatives over your loyalty. Today, my business is thriving, and I sleep with a clear conscience, knowing I made the right choice. Sometimes walking away from a room full of people is the only way to find your true path